The Saint Mort Show.
Everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Saint Mort Show. Today I am joined by geek model and cosplay professional Lily LeDeux, which I hope I'm pronouncing that last name properly.
You are. It
Awesome.
sounded good.
Awesome. Now, Lily, I got Lily on the show through a group called Ashen Phoenix. Who they were at a convention that I had done a bunch of live episodes from, and literally the day after the convention, I had gotten a friend request from Ashen, and became pretty tight with one of the people there. And I was telling them how, you know, all the cons I go to, I've never really been into cosplaying. I tried it one time, I hated it, but I want to understand it. And she recommended that I talk to Lily here, as she is a big fan of cosplaying, and it kind of give me a chance to get into the mind of what makes a cosplayer tick. So thank you for joining me, Lily.
I'm happy to be here.
So my cosplaying horror story was about 3 years ago at New York Comic Con. And I already know what my mistake was essentially... I had a friend who was hardcore into cosplaying, and she was going as one of Doctor Who's companions, and she wanted me to be the Doctor Who, even though I'm like a mediocre Doctor Who fan at best. So I think that was the first mistake, was being in cosplay of a character that I don't care about. And I lasted about 45 minutes, because I was just like, everyone keeps stopping me, all I want to do is buy my shit. And and people were stopping me for photographs, and they're asking me about episodes that I've never heard of, and I remember I eventually just pulled her aside, and I'm like, look, you're on your own, and like I had a backpack with a change of clothes, and I just like changed back into my normal clothes, and she like found her group of Hoodians, and they just like went off and did Doctor Who stuff for the day.
They went and found the TARDIS.
Yeah, one of them was cosplaying as the TARDIS. So,
gosh.
And it was like literally, it was right as the Matt Smith thing had started. So I hadn't even watched any of the Matt Smith episodes. I had just finished the David Tennant series, and maybe watched like the first episode with Matt Smith. Like that was the extension that I knew of the Doctor. So it was pretty rough. What was did you ever have any cosplay horror stories, or did you kind of enjoy it from the very first time you did it?
Well, honestly, I think I just enjoyed it from the first time that I ever did it. I'm normally a pretty brave person, but I'm not brave enough to cosplay a character with which I'm not familiar. So I don't want to be that girl that people stop and they're like, oh, hey, Tifa. And then I'm like, oh, God, please don't ask me any questions about Tifa because I am clueless. I will never cosplay anybody that I can't sit and talk to you about for an hour. So no, everybody I've ever done, I normally blow the geeks away. I mean, I normally blow myself away once I realize how much I actually retain. So no, I've had great experiences with it.
Now, do you remember what the first character was that you ever cosplayed?
Tifa.
Okay. Is that your main go-to, or do you have a few others up your sleeve?
Oh, no. She's definitely not my main go-to. She's a little bit on the easier side, I would say. But honestly, I love my Morrigan. If you've ever played Dragon Age Origins, Morrigan. I loved playing her.
See, and this is where I'm going to be totally lost, because I think you and I talked about this before. Mm-hmm. We even set up the interview as like, you're a hardcore gamer, and I am... absolutely not. I like, for all the geeky shit that I do, gaming has just never been one of it. Like now, and that's going to sound weird to the people who bitched at me for the one episode that had me talking about what happened in my D&D game for 15 minutes. But D&D and gaming are two totally different worlds.
I have to totally agree there, 100%.
because D&D also is I mean, they're both communal, but D&D is a sitting face to face, looking at people communal, and it's also like a once a week or once a month commitment, depending on how serious you are. Mm-hmm. You talk to a motherfucker who plays World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah,
and that is like a 5 to 6, 7 hours a day dedication.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's pretty much like a part-time job if you're going to play that type of game, and I have.
Yeah, I know my one buddy one day quit World of Warcraft after years of playing it, and his reasoning was he was like, it literally just felt like I had another job. Like,
yeah.
He's like, I came home from my job and I had to go and do a series of things every day after work to keep my character up to date. Mm-hmm. He's like, once it becomes a chore, it's not fun.
Yeah.
He's like, it's more fun when it's a game that you can walk away from for a few days and then come back and play when you want to play. Not like, oh, well, your character's going to lose points if you're not there every day at this time doing these things.
Doing the raids with your guild when they have them timed out. Oh yeah, totally understand. There was actually a point where I spent 2 weeks of Christmas break eating leftover chocolate and doing nothing but playing 16 hours of WoW every day. So I have been there.
Now, was this before or after you decided to become a model?
During, I guess. That was probably the least productive 2 weeks of my life. WoW would disagree, but my life, disagreed with WoW. So
I just like the idea of like if that in that point of your career, if you would suddenly become this huge model, and all these people are doing these interviews about their diets, and then you're the one that's just like, well, I ate chocolate for 2 weeks and played WoW.
I really strongly recommend that nobody contact me for diet advice. You don't want to hear what I eat on a daily basis. It's not productive or healthy.
But you know what? Who cares? My philosophy has been, at least I'll die full.
Exactly.
So did the cosplaying happen before the modeling, or did the modeling happen before cosplay, or did it kind of happen at the exact same time?
Modeling happened way before cosplay. I was 14 years old when I started modeling. I'm 26 now, and I just started cosplaying this year.
Okay, and was it something that you kind of wanted to do like on your own, or was it something that you had an interest in and someone else kind of pushed you to do it, or was it introduced to you by someone else?
This has always been something I've loved. I'm a nerd. I'm a geek to the inner part of my core. I was raised to be a geek. I can't even tell you when I first started playing video games. So for me, when the opportunity was presented by Ash and Phoenix to start cosplaying, but to combine that with my modeling, I literally felt like my calling had been shown upon me to combine everything that I love, my games, my nerdness, everything. It's just like the universe just shined down this golden ray of light saying, this is what you're meant to do. And it's been wonderful.
And I think that that's kind of what I like a lot about Ash and Phoenix, from what I've experienced talking to you and a few of the other people there, is that while yes, it's models cosplaying, mm-hmm. It is not a booth babe kind of situation. It is not, oh well, here's some hot girls, so let's just throw them in costumes that are based on characters that look similar to them. Like, every single one of you that I've spoken to has blown me out of the water in your knowledge of something geekdom wise, and I think that's a big. I think that's a big issue within the geek community.
Most definitely
is that there's love or hate the term, but there is a large amount of ferds that you find at conventions.
Oh yeah.
Mostly models hired by companies to just stand at the booth and draw people in.
Agreed.
And I've had my own experiences running booths at San Diego Comic-Con and having a booth right next to me full of 5 or 6 models that can't stop talking about how weird and gross everybody is.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
It's disappointing. Like, why are you even there? You knew what, first off, if you're going to get hired for a job like that, you know what you're getting into, and you should enjoy your job. And if you don't like doing these things, you shouldn't have taken the job in the first place. But that's one of the things that I love about our team is that each one of us is a geek. We are a master geek in some area. For me, I'm the gamer girl of our group. For a couple of the other girls, they're into anime. Some of the other girls are more into the comic books. You will find somebody in our group that will fit your niche. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how we are. And that is what I love about us. We're real. And we have been accused of being booth babes. That actually happened at the Louisville Comic Con. We entered a cosplay contest, and the people who were running against us just said we were just doing this to do it, just to try to win. And honestly, that was my first real Comic Con. So to me, to be able to win that award would have been affirmation of the time and effort I put into making my costumes, because I do sew them all myself. And it was just more of a representation of my love for the character that I brought to life. So I totally get why people worry about that, but they can't just assume that because you model that you can't be a nerd too.
Exactly. And I mean, I have been guilty of it, and I think a lot of people have been guilty of it. And I think it really just depends on how you grew up. I think that the younger crowd, it's not as much of a factor. Because geek chic is huge. Like, but like growing up in the 90s, going to high school, there was nothing that made it cool about reading Spider-Man comics in high school, and like there were just certain things. I mean, I've talked about it to a couple people younger than me who think that I'm completely crazy, but when I was a junior higher, I was really into punk rock music. And in the days before, like, Blink-182, it was not cool to listen to punk music. Like, like, even though Green Day and Offspring were popular, even then, if you were a fan of those bands, most of the kids at school thought you were weird. So it's kind of like they don't... I feel like I can't decide if I would be happier if I had grown up when that was acceptable, or if I'm glad I grew up when it wasn't, because it kind of forced you to grow thick skin and be true to yourself.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. But it's sad to even have to worry about that in the first place, because I know even when I was in high school, to try to admit that you're a geek or a nerd was still slightly frowned upon, which is sad because everybody's got something that they love. And because what I love is considered out of the norm, I'm a weirdo for it, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, and it's kind of funny because I'm getting closer and closer to the 10-year reunion. And I've left my hometown for brief periods, but for the most part, I still live in my hometown like 99% of the people that I graduated with. So it's inevitable that I'll bump into people that I never spoke to in school but remember. And it was funny because someone saw me at a diner recently, and we were having a conversation, and he had said something that kind of was like one of those really like, moments where he was just like, you know what I always liked about you is you were true to yourself the entire 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of one of those things where it's like, you know what, it sucked that like I didn't have like this big group of friends. I had this little niche group of like 2 or 3 people, but like we were who we were. Like, we didn't go to the sporting events. We didn't go to the dances, but we were on the stage crew, and we were on the TV studio, and they were in the anime club, and like we never tried to blend in with the cool crowd. Like, we were just who we were.
Yep.
And I think that was a huge part of me never really being able to have any bullied stories, because I think that that's where bullying actually happens.
Yeah.
Is when you're a geek and you're trying everything in your power to be the cool kid, instead of kind of just accepting, like, no, it's cool to just be okay with being the geek.
Totally.
And I think that people appreciate that. I think that there's an appreciation to being true to who you are. We are already way off the topic of cosplay, but I'm okay with that.
We're touching a lot of good topics here.
And that's, like I said, I just like to see where the conversation goes. Now, here's the big thing that I want to talk to you about, and I've made I've made a very conscious decision not to talk to you about this before the podcast.
Okay.
So you're a Paul Heyman girl.
Oh my gosh, yes, I'm a Paul Heyman girl.
Because this has come up on the podcast many, many times,
Okay.
that I would love to be a manager for a wrestler one day.
Uh-huh.
And the question was raised of, would I be a Paul Bearer or a Paul Heyman? And I said a Paul Heyman, of course.
Oh, God, yeah.
He is the greatest manager in the history of wrestling. And
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, the only person that even comes close would be Bobby the Brain.
Mm-hmm.
He is this generation's Bobby the Brain Heenan times 10. He's so good at being an asshole. So you get to go to all those events.
Yes.
Do you have any awesome stories? I know that there's probably, a decent amount of, what happens backstage stays backstage. So I don't want you to get in trouble, but anything that you can share. I love going on wrestling tangents on the show.
Well, my very first event that I was able to attend was courtesy of Paul in January. I drove to Dayton. He got me front row tickets, handed me a I'm a Paul Heyman girl t-shirt, and I sat up there and I enjoyed the entire show. It was amazing. I'd never really seen WWE to that point, so him introducing me to it was incredible. And a lot of people are like, well, why do you even watch this? Like, it's fake. And I'm like, do you watch soap operas? Do you watch TV at all? Do you watch any type of series? Because if you do, you're a hypocrite. Because what you're watching on TV is also fake.
One of the most popular tweets I ever wrote was on the day of WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, I can't believe that people aren't going to be watching WrestleMania with me because Game of Thrones is on. Don't those motherfuckers know that shit's fake?
Oh my gosh, that is good. That is very good.
But I mean, it's never they make a very conscious decision to call it sports entertainment.
Exactly.
Like, they know that it's a male soap opera, and it's an awesome soap opera.
I couldn't agree more. It is. It's the perfect male soap opera, and that's exactly the term I use to describe it to anybody who doesn't get it. I'm like, it's a male soap opera. It gives men drama. It gives them somebody to fight for, somebody to hate. Just like you do when you watch Vampire Diaries, or when you watch Game of Thrones and you prefer the Lannisters over the Starks. It's the same damn thing. It is.
And it's funny because I always look at wrestling from a writer's standpoint. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's the people who feel like they are part of the entertainment world. I consider you one of those people. You're a model. You understand the idea of setting up something to convey a message.
Yeah.
Be it, and you more than anybody really, the power of a look.
Oh yeah, God yeah.
And I try to explain this to my friends who don't like wrestling, and I say, like, the most incredible thing in wrestling is the ability to tell an entire story with no words and no match, but simply the way a one wrestler looks at another wrestler during a break. Be it, the king of it for me right now is Bray Wyatt.
Oh God.
The way that he tells a story, like, first of all, he's great on the mic, but beyond that, you look at his face anytime that he has lost a match, and you see that smile on his face, and you know that he didn't lose this match. And it plays on such a brilliant psychological writing level, and it's amazing reading forums and message boards and wrestling message boards where you don't have people who are writers or actors or models or directors. You just have hardcore fans, and they get really pissed off about stuff.
Oh, I despise the man. And he does it so well. I hate him because he wants me to. It's not because I've chosen that emotion. He's chosen it for me. He makes me feel how he wants me to feel. And they all do it. And they're all very talented.
And that's the thing, is that I'll hear people complain where they're like, oh, they let John Cena beat Bray Wyatt, now they've ruined his character. And, like, in my mind, I'm a firm believer that the outcome of the match does not affect how you feel about that character. In fact, sometimes a loss makes you root for that character more.
Agreed. I mean, look at, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forget his name right now. Daniel
Bryan, the GOAT.
Yes, Daniel Bryan. How many times has that man been smacked down just to come back up again because the crowd wants him up?
Oh, and you almost want to, like, you talk to fans and you just want to punch them sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, oh man, the WWE hates Daniel Bryan. It's like, don't you understand like, I remember I gave them the analogy one time of, like, I don't think you understand storytelling. Like, do you know how boring Star Wars would be if in the first 10 minutes Luke just blew up the Death Star and killed the Emperor?
Thank you.
Like,
yes.
No, you needed 3 movies stretched out over 10 years of building this tension of is he going to win? So that moment when Darth Vader comes out... I mean, honestly, the ending of Return of the Jedi plays out like a wrestling match.
It kind of does.
It's the Emperor versus Luke, and then the Emperor's sidekick turns on him at the end. It is literally...
It sounds like The Shield.
It's literally The Shield. Darth Vader is, in fact, Seth Rollins in this scenario.
Oh, so much for taking down Evolution, huh?
Yeah. Oh, do you think... Okay, so here's a geeky question that people
Sure.
who don't watch wrestling will have no clue what we're talking about.
I know.
Do you think that the Shield is going to stick as a 2-man tag team, or do you think they're going to introduce a new third member, or do you think that they're going to quickly bring Seth Rollins back in like 2 weeks?
Honestly, I think they're going to try to reel him back in first. And if they don't, I see them trying to recruit a third member. I don't think they'll stick as the 2. Now, those 2 have a good relationship. That's the thing. They both really do. And I think it hurts them to see what's happened here, but I think that they can convince him to come back.
See,
I really do.
My biggest issue is, I mean, it's not even an issue, but everyone has all their attention on Roman Reigns. And, like, don't get me wrong. Roman Reigns is a great wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
But he's probably my least favorite of the 3.
Really?
Yeah, because I like that Seth Rollins is a high flyer a lot. And I think that Dean Ambrose is one of the best mic guys.
Yeah.
And that's my go... you could be the shittiest wrestler in the world, but if you're amazing on the microphone, then I will forgive the crappiness of your wrestling. And
Yeah.
Roman Reigns is easily the worst on the mic.
Yeah, he's not very good on the mic. I do have to agree with you there. He's not good.
And but I can see him being the next Cena. I could easily see him being the next Cena because beyond the fact that he's got the build, he's got the sex appeal for the female fans.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, that's probably why I favor him above Dean. So I'm just going to be honest here as a female fan.
I'm straight enough to say that I wouldn't see myself... If I had to have a sex dream about one of them, I think Roman Reigns has more to bring to the table than the other 2. But he even does the Superman punch. Like, I can see him being that guy that takes over when John Cena inevitably leaves, because he's been there a long-ass time.
Oh, God, yeah.
He's got to be ready to step down and just do Make-A-Wish until the day he dies, because he's killing it.
Honestly, and he could survive doing that. I mean, he's their highest-paid wrestler. I mean, it's not like it would hurt him to quit at this point or to retire. I mean, he's got it made. He really does.
I mean, if Stone Cold is doing fine as a retired wrestler,
oh, God, yeah.
And I'm sure, like, as much as historic and iconic as Stone Cold is, I'm fairly certain John Cena's getting paid more than Stone Cold even did.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Like, John Cena can walk away tomorrow and never have to work another day in his life, and I think he'd be okay if he's been smart with his money. I think that's the key thing, is that if you're saving up that money instead of spending it, you're set. I don't understand why any wrestler bothers to buy a house until they've retired.
I know. They're on the road so much.
Like,
it's
like
ridiculous.
It's like, what, 300 days out of the year or something like that?
Yeah, it's crazy. And then there's times where they're traveling internationally, too. I think in May, they were over in Europe.
Yes, they were. They were in London.
So, yeah, I mean, they were all over the place. So, no, I totally agree with you. There's no point in having a house if you're going to be traveling that much.
Like, I listened to an interview with Dean Ambrose, and he said, like he was being interviewed by Colt Cabana. And Colt Cabana's like, so you're living in Las Vegas? And he goes, I have an apartment in Las Vegas. He's like...
That sounds about right.
And it's like... and even then, he was like, why? And he goes, I just want a place to keep my shit. He's like, I have a place that my stuff is at, and it was cheap to live just outside of Las Vegas. Cheap, like, he's on television 2 to 3 times a week, and he lives in an apartment. That you... Like, wrap your head around anyone else who's on television that much per week, and them living in just an apartment.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Gosh.
happen. I can promise
No.
you. I can promise you, Joel McHale doesn't live in an apartment. So how did the Paul Heyman girl thing even, like, did he see you and send you an offer, or did you send, like, a resume, like, hey, I'd like to be a Paul Heyman girl, or...
Actually, it was really lucky on my part. I had post pictures like I normally do on Twitter, and a Twitter account, Poprect, had retweeted one of my images, and I guess he and Paul, kind of see each other's tweets. I think they follow each other. And Paul saw one of the tweets that he had retweeted of mine, and Paul took interest immediately. So I was pretty quickly in contact with Paul after that about how he wanted me to go to the shows, and I was all for it, because why not, I'm all about new experiences. And to me, learning about WWE seemed like it could be really cool. I went to the first match, had a lot of fun. The next week, I went to their Raw match in Cleveland. And, I got captured on TV quite a bit at that point. And so buzz started buzzing around me as a Paul Heyman girl, and then Paul had actually had me enter his Paul Heyman Girl contest, which I got 12th out of 25, which I heard that's pretty good for somebody who is so new into this. So he's been sending me to shows, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him this past week.
Nice.
So
yeah, it's really easy to get sucked in. Like I hadn't watched since like '93. Like the last thing I remembered
it's been a little while.
Yeah, like the last thing I remembered about wrestling was Doink the Clown versus Bam Bam Bigelow.
Oh God, yeah.
And like the only way like I knew about anything else going on in wrestling was because in junior high, like the 3 or 4 friends I had were like hardcore into wrestling to the point that every Saturday they bought all the wrestling theme song albums, and they would just wrestle on a trampoline in the backyard. And we would get together and have sleepovers where we'd play No Mercy on the N64, which is still the greatest wrestling game ever made. But like that was it. Like I knew of wrestling strictly through other people. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I started booking concerts and all these bands that would come in for these concerts would just be talking about what they saw on Raw or getting excited about the next pay-per-view that I decided to check it out on Hulu. And the way I put it, I told one friend was like, I watched it and I was kind of bored for like the first 15 minutes, and then the Wyatt family came out.
God, those guys.
And I was like, what is this? And then shortly after them, The Shield came out. I'm like, this is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. All right, I'll give SmackDown a shot. And then I watched SmackDown that week. And then they were talking about the pay-per-view coming up, and I'm like, all right. And I like messaged one of my friends. I'm like, can I come over to your house for the pay-per-view? And like, it was like within that week, I went from a guy who couldn't give a shit about wrestling to a guy who was just digesting as much of it as I can. And I bought the network the second that it was available. Mm-hmm. And the first week that network was available, I don't think I watched anything other than the network.
Yeah.
Watching every match I could watch and every TV series I could watch. And then my roommate started to like get into a few of the shows, and like he'll come to the pay-per-view parties now. Like he'll come downstairs and watch pay-per-views, and it's kind of just one of those things where my one buddy had a quote where he was like, the secret to understanding wrestling is that you watch it for a week, and if you don't understand it, you just watch it for another week. and
oh, that's funny.
And it's true. Like I'm a firm believer, and I know a lot of people will fight me tooth and nail, but I'm a firm believer that everybody can be a wrestling fan and a comic book fan. I believe that there is a comic book for everybody, and there is a wrestler that you can connect to out there.
Most definitely. No, I have to completely agree with that. I wasn't sure how I would perceive wrestling when I first started watching it, but as soon as I did, I became a Daniel Bryan fan, and I became a Brock Lesnar fan. And it was just insane. I'm like, oh my God, I actually really like these guys. And before you know it, 5 seconds into the match, and I'm screaming just like any seasoned wrestling fan in the crowd. So,
and there's something about certain things, punk music, wrestling, comic books, and video games, mm-hmm. that the second you meet someone who also shares that interest, there's this immediate friendship.
Oh, God, yeah.
There's this immediate, like, oh my God, I can talk to you about this stuff? Because I can't talk to anyone else about this stuff.
Yeah. And you run into a lot of that at the Comic Cons. You really do. Like, you can bump into the person next to you and you see that they're looking at the same thing as you. And it's like you guys can talk for hours about what you're looking at.
And it's fun. I think that's part of the fun of, for me doing the podcast is that the podcast is essentially, I've always joked around about it, but the podcast is essentially just a way for me to meet a new friend every week.
Yeah.
Because you almost always find some type of topic that you both relate to. And like the amount of email chains that have continued for years after I've interviewed someone because we both connected on a topic like horror movies and just wanted to talk more and more about horror movies. Mm-hmm. And that's another one, actually. I'll throw horror movies in that mix. You find another person who's a hardcore horror fan, you've made a friend for life.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
And, I mean, even to the point where, like, I envy you because there's so many times where I'm just like, man, I would... Like I watch wrestling DVDs and documentaries, and I'm just like, I bet I could become friends with that guy. He seems cool. And it's like so unreasonable to just be like, him and I. Like if I had a chance, if I had a chance backstage, Cody Rhodes and I would have a good time. But you're actually, I'm almost jealous that you even have yourself in a sort of position to find out if that's true.
Well, I have met a few of them, and I'm not going to name names, but they're all very cool people. All of them. Very cool people.
I had a friend who, for a while, and he was never a wrestling fan, so he said it was super awkward for him, but he was dating Michael Cole's daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Like something like that. So whenever the wrestling would come to Philly, he would get backstage passes to the matches, and he said, first of all, not being a wrestling fan, it's already awkward. He goes, because everybody knows that you're dating this guy's daughter, so they're all ribbing you and messing around with you and being like, you heard her, we're coming after you. But he was like, but I can tell you that the Big Show is both A, the friendliest person I've ever met, and B, the most intimidating person I've ever met. I
can only imagine.
He was like, that dude's hand is the size of my face.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, he's a big guy. I was at one match where it was the Big Show versus Brock, and he threw Brock out of the ring, and I just happened to be standing right where Brock was thrown out.
I remember that match.
Yeah. And I'm standing right there, and I'm like, oh, dear God, please don't hurt Brock. Because comparing the two, I mean, it's no joke. It's like a giant tree to a sapling. I mean, the man is huge. I would be terrified.
Now, you had mentioned right before I had hit record that you had a funny SmackDown story from this week. Are you able to share that, or is that a little...
Yes.
Okay.
The thing is, it's partially related to SmackDown and partially related to my fleeting intelligence, which occasionally happens. So I was really excited. SmackDown just ended. Really good show. I'm getting ready to leave a little bit early because, God forbid, you end up in that crowd with all of those damn people trying to leave that city. Hell no. So I go back to try to find my car because I'm going to go meet Paul for the very first time, and I'm so excited. I get out to the street, and I realize I have no idea where I parked my car. Don't know which garage I parked it in. I ended up with a police escort trying to help me find my car for 3 hours before taking a cab to finally go meet Paul. No joke. Nobody believed that I lost my car. Everybody thought that, oh, well, she's just doing something else. No, I legitimately lost my car, but I guess people think higher of my intelligence than what happened. So they had assumed that, oh, well, she's doing something else. Maybe she met up with somebody else. Nope. Legitimately lost my car.
That was in Cincinnati on Friday, right? Or was that Raw on Monday?
That was Cincinnati on Tuesday. They filmed Main Event and SmackDown at the same time.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, the Raw is live. Mm-hmm. SmackDown and Main Event are kind of pre-recorded.
Yeah, they're recorded on Tuesdays.
But yeah, that's still, I keep wanting to go to a match, and it feels like, despite the fact, well, maybe it's because of the fact, but despite the fact that my one boss is a wrestling fan, he always manages to schedule me doing every pay-per-view and every Philly show.
Oh, no, that's horrible.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's doing it so he can go to the Philly shows.
Oh, I can't say I blame him. They're so much fun. You have to make it out to one.
My biggest worry is that I'm kind of cheap. So I'm like, oh, the cheapest tickets are only $15. And my friend's like, don't spend the $15. Like, you're not going to see anything. You're going to be basically staring at a pillar, hearing people cheer.
Yeah, no, he's right. I'm very fortunate, and Paul gets me floor tickets. And I've actually sat up in the bleachers after having those tickets, and let me tell you, there's no comparison. You go, you get a floor ticket.
And one day,
you must do it.
My dream is to one day be able to cast a wrestler in a movie, so that I have that in.
Yeah, there you go.
Just get that in. That's all. Like my former and probably one day future guest Tommy Avalone gets tickets to most of the Philly shows, I believe, because nice. He is doing a documentary with Mick Foley.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's doing a documentary called "I Am Santa Claus" about what mall Santas do 11 months of the year. And one of the subplots of the movie is that Mick Foley wants to be in like a mall Santa Claus, so it's him going through like the whole training process and like dyeing his beard white and all that to be a mall Santa.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see the final product. He's been working on it for about 2 years. You can go as far back as the first episode of this podcast 4 years ago, and he mentions that he's been thinking about doing a documentary about Santa Claus. So
that's cool.
It's kind of cool to have been able to see the whole evolution of the project. Now, we've covered wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have.
We tackled, but did not fully cover cosplay. Let's talk about gaming, though. Were you? I know you're kind of a PC gamer. Were you always a PC gamer, or did you start off with the Nintendos and the Segas and the PlayStations?
I started off with regular old Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers 3. It was our Saturday ritual. We would play as far as we could get in the day, and then we were done at the end of the day. I love Duck Hunt. Oh my gosh, how I love Duck Hunt. That was such a good game. That and Super Mario Bros. I mean, that was the shit. I mean, it didn't get any better than Super Mario Brothers. You know, and then after a while, you got to blow into the cartridges, and they just started dying, and then Nintendo died, and I felt like I died, so we ended up getting a PlayStation. But I've since evolved to the Xbox and the PC, which, by the way, I built my own PC specifically for gaming.
So, take that, people who call you a booth babe. I
know, right? Like, here, let me show you my PC. Let me show you all of its awesome parts that I built to be better than Alienware. What?
So I guess because I also started off with playing, Super Mario 3 and Super Mario World, but I did not evolve to the point of needing to build a PC. In fact, at this point in time, circa 2014, at the age of 28, I still only own a Super Nintendo. I have an Xbox 360 that I borrowed from someone in my basement, and I use it just to watch the WWE Network.
Oh, God. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Like, there has to have been... I feel like you skipped something.
Yeah.
Like, was there other games... Obviously, there had to have been. What were some of the other games from, like, the Duck Hunts that kind of progressed you into the world of PC gaming?
I started playing some Spyro as I was, kind of a kid. That progressed into Crash Bandicoot, and I was obsessed with any Crash Bandicoot. It didn't matter which one.
I used to love... I think it was the third one, Time Warp.
Yes, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. With the portals and how you could dive underneath the brick road.
Yeah,
and there was... gosh.
I remember I used to play that at my friend's house, and I had, mastered the level where you were riding a tiger on the Great Wall of China.
Gosh. Yes. Oh, gosh, those were so much fun. I kind of want to go dig out a PlayStation now and go play that game.
Yeah, there was... Well, and that's, on the Super Nintendo, I always bust out the old... Earthworm Jim games. There was something about that. There was that little genre where they had these really surreal games. Because Mario kind of started it. Mario had a little bit of a surreal atmosphere to it, and Sonic the Hedgehog had a little bit of a surrealism to it. And then you have Earthworm Jim, which is just like the most bizarre video game ever. And I feel like Crash Bandicoot, as much as it was trying to be like the PlayStation's Sonic and Mario, there's just so much weirdness going on in those levels that it definitely has a little bit of that Earthworm Jim weirdness to it too.
Yeah.
I'm having flashbacks to the levels right now as we're talking, like where you're like walking through you're being chased by dinosaurs and you're going through the tar and there's all the dinosaur bones. And
oh my gosh, yeah, where you had to escape from things as quickly as you can, not get run over by boulders. And
there was the tiger with a flamethrower and you had to like hide in these ice sculptures.
Yeah.
Oh
there was
God.
a lot to those games. I loved them.
Man, I need to track down an old PlayStation.
I think I might still have one.
That's because now I'm literally just like zoning out and memorizing levels that I used to play of Crash Bandicoot 3.
Such a good game. I've never talked to anybody who hated that game. You can't hate that game. It's a beautiful game.
And it's weird because I think that it also throws back to when like a game was just like you could shut off your brain and just play it.
Yeah.
Because now, like, that's kind of where I got lost in games, is like, now I just feel like it's like, oh no, there's way too much work to figure out how to beat the game. Like, it's not just like a keep walking across the screen until you find the bad guy.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I stick to my MMORPGs for like PvP purposes, because if you know your character well enough, it kind of does feel like you're shutting down, because it almost feels instinctual. Or either that, I just play way too much and it is instinctual. I mean, I don't know. Lately I picked up League of Legends again, and I mean, I literally probably play for hours at night. After my kids go to bed, computer goes on and League of Legends gets popped up. I mean, that's what I do now.
Yeah, that was probably the only, not League of Legends, but City of Heroes.
Okay.
Was the only PC game I almost considered playing.
Yeah.
Because everyone was telling me, like, oh, you'll love it. Like, you'll love it. It's just, you create a superhero and you fly around and it's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I never really got into that one, though. For my MMOs, I really do prefer PC. There's other games that, I'll play on Xbox, like Call of Duty. That belongs on the Xbox, obviously. Mass Effect, I think that one could go either way, but if I had to choose platform, I'd definitely go with the Xbox for that one. But I feel like the Elder Scrolls games are better on PC, probably because of the mods that everybody makes for them, though.
Yeah, and this is obviously where we get to a point where there's very little I can throw in.
Yeah.
I'm sure the people listening will be like, yes, no, she's right, or, oh, she's ridiculous.
I want to hear it. No. No, that's the beauty of MMOs on a computer. I love them.
See, and I guess for me, like I said, I prefer the D&D. I prefer the and I only play once a month, which is great when you've created a character that you love.
Yeah.
Because you find yourself just like counting down until the next month's game. Mm-hmm. And like I'm at that point now where I've because I used to play strictly like wizard characters and stuff like, and bards, and they were fun because they had all these spells, but they never really dealt too much damage, and you were never really a huge part of the action. So when my last character died, I was like, let me try a fighter. And like now I can't imagine ever not playing a fighter, because there's just something cool about having this thing that deals so much damage that it's just like in 2 hits you've taken out something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my god, I used to be that dude who just kind of stood in the corner and be like, I sing a song for inspiration.
Let me rally your forces.
Yeah, exactly. And like now I'm just like, all right, I hit it with the battle axe. And I think that like like I said before, like I like the idea of just we're all there together. Like it's we're all getting closer to 30 than we are 20. It's a great excuse for once a month all of us to get away from the adult life and just have an excuse to sit around, eat pizza, and hang out.
Yep.
And the fact that we're playing a game together just makes it all the better.
Oh, totally.
It's literally the equivalency of junior high playing No Mercy with a group of friends at a sleepover.
Yep.
And I think that's I think that there's a lot of friendships that I've seen, not with my own, but other people, where you all kind of drift apart because you don't take the time to figure out a way to see each other on a semi-regular basis. Mm-hmm. Because, you get married, you have kids, and it definitely takes over your life a little bit, but you still have the ability. You still have the ability to set a schedule and say, you know what, like, life is going to control my life for 30 days of the month. Mm-hmm. But on this 31st day, like, I just make sure that I'm not working that day. I make sure that the kids have a sitter or that they're at a play date with their friends. I make sure that my wife has a night to go hang out with her friends, and I'm going to go see my buddies that I haven't seen all month.
Yep.
And because, I don't know, I definitely am a person who romanticizes the idea of falling in love, but even in my romanticized version of it, it's like, bitch, I need some time apart.
No, I totally agree. And I get asked pretty frequently by guys, like, what do you look for in a guy? And I'm like, somebody who's going to let me be a nerd, somebody who's not going to scoff at me because I want to play video games after the kids go to bed, So I want my bowl of ice cream and my cherry Coke or my Kit Kats to sit here and play League of Legends. Like, that's what I want, So that, makes perfect sense to me.
Well, we're nearing the end. Is there anything that you would like to plug? This will be coming out in about a week.
Well, we will be at the Philly Comic Con, the team of Ash and Phoenix. There's a lot of us girls going to be out cosplaying. We're going to have some pretty awesome prints. Even if you just want to stop by and say hi, there's going to be a whole bunch of us there. We can talk games with you. We can talk comics with you, anime, you name it. We just want to see people come out. We just want to be able to meet you guys. We love meeting and greeting. We love taking pictures. The con runs from the 19th to the 22nd. It's a Thursday through a Friday in Philly. We would just love to see a good turnout.
And because that will be that'll be 12 days from right now. Mm-hmm. So, we'll see what happens with the Shield over the next two SmackDowns and Raw. So while I'm at the con on the 22nd, I'm going to have to track you down.
Oh, most definitely.
And
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and we'll have to update each other on if, do we think that Rollins is coming back or if they're going to add someone new. And then we can discuss who. Oh, okay, that's what's going to happen is over the next 12 days, you and I, we have to try to decide who we think will be the new third member.
That's a good idea. I'm going to be going to Raw and SmackDown hopefully next week, so I'll have a few day insight into what's going on at SmackDown. Ooh. I won't miss that on TV for being at Philly. So I like that. I like that a lot.
That's a plan then.
Yep,
people who are fans of or want to see some of your modeling work, what's the best place for them to see it?
Well, there's a couple places. I have my own website, which I built because I'm a nerd. BritBliss.com. That's my modeling name. Or you can visit me on Facebook. You can find me either through Brit Bliss or Lily LeDeux.
And I know I would have to ask this question. How do you spell LeDeux?
It's L-E, capital D-E-U-X.
All right. So go check out Lily and Brit's modeling work.
Whichever
one
tickles your fancy.
She may have a split personality disorder. We'll have to discuss that as well at the convention.
Okay.
It was nice having you on, Lily.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was fun.